Good day, everyone. My name is Samantha Nicole Z. Barrios, and I'll be discussing to you the author and the two person who drafted Filipino grievances against Governor Wood.
It began in the early 1920s, a time when the Philippines was still under American colonial rule. Tensions were high between Filipino leaders and the American Governor General Leonard Wood. Governor Wood's authoritarian policies were seen as a direct threat to the country's growing desire for self-rule. This tension ultimately culminated in the drafting of the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood. In 1926, a pivotal document that united Filipino leaders in defiance of Wood's rule. This moment was a key step in the Philippines' long and challenging journey toward independence. Before we dive into the contributions of the two legal minds behind the grievances, let's first acknowledge a figure who is widely recognized in the study of Philippine history, Gregorio F. Seed. Gregorio F. Seed was born in 1907 and passed away in 1986. He was one of the most prolific Filipino historians whose works have shaped how we understand our country's history. Born in Pagsanjan, Laguna, Seed's journey to becoming a historian took him to the University of the Philippines, where he earned his bachelor's degree, followed by further studies in the United States. He earned his master's degree from the University of Chicago and a PhD in history from the Philippines of Santo Tomas. Zaid wasn't just a historian, though he also served as a politician and was even mayor of his hometown from 1971 to 1975. Zaid's works are essential reading for a student of history. Over a career spanning 5 decades, he authored more than 67 books and contributed to over 500 articles on Philippine history. His landmark work, History of the Filipino People, remains one of the most widely read books on Philippine history today, providing an extensive chronicle of the Filipino people's struggles during both the Spanish and the American colonial periods. Among his many contributions to the study of Philippine history was his examination of Governor General Leonard Wood's controversial rule. Now, let's focus on the two legal minds who drafted the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood. Jose Abad Santos, the heroic patriot. Jose Abad Santos was born in San Fernando, Pampanga in 1886. He pursued law at Northwestern University in Illinois under the prestigious Pensionado program, passing the bar in 1911. His career quickly blossomed and he became an assistant attorney at the Bureau of Justice, eventually rising to Attorney General of the Philippines. By 1921, Abad Santos was appointed Undersecretary of Justice, but he resigned 2 years later during the cabinet crisis of 1923. This resignation was his bold statement of opposition to governors with interference in Filipino affairs. Abad Santos would go on to achieve national hero status. In 1932, he was appointed Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, and by 1941, he had become Chief Justice. Now, let's tackle about George Bocobo, the scholar and statesman. Alongside Abad Santos in drafting the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood was George Bocobo. Born in Gerona, Tarlac in 1886, Bocobo was another pensionado scholar who studied law in the United States. Earning his degree from Indiana University, upon returning to the Philippines, he joined the University of the Philippines as a professor of law, eventually becoming the university president from 1934 to 1939. Bocobo wasn't just a scholar, though he was deeply involved in public service. He served as a speechwriter and close associate of President Manuel L. Quezon, helping to articulate the nationalist aspirations of the Filipino people like Abad Santos. Bokobo's dedication to justice continued even during the Japanese occupation, when he served as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court from 1942 to 1944. He passed away in 1965, but his contributions to both law and education remain influential. Before this presentation ends, let's briefly introduce the man at the center of these grievances before my partner explains the topic in more detail. Leonard Wood, born in 1860, was a U.S. Army Major General and served as a Governor General of the Philippines from 1921 to 1927. His centralized leadership style and disregard for the political aspirations of the Filipinos earned him significant opposition from Filipino leaders. His tenure is often seen as a period of heightened tension between the U.S. colonial government and the Philippine legislature.
Jose Abad Santos and George Bocobo made significant contribution to the broader nationalists during Governor Leonard Wood's tenure. Bocobo, as a legal scholar, advocated for Filipino sovereignty and criticized Wood's refusal to cooperate with local leaders, providing intellectual support for the resistance. While Abad Santos, a jurist, opposed Wood's authoritarian policies and stood for justice, reinforcing the call for Filipino self-governance. While Gregorio Zaid, though not directly involved in the opposition, chronicled and preserved the history of Filipino grievances, ensuring the future generation remembered the struggle.